President and CEO for Prairie Mountain Media and publisher of The Camera. I'd like to welcome everyone today to our first ever virtual presentation in the Aging at Altitude series. Now, to get us started this morning, I know this is new to everyone, so I'd like everyone to look at the bottom of their screen, either their Zoom screen or their iPad or their computer, and you'll see a Q&A box. You can click on that Q&A box to submit your questions. We'll have about 20 minutes after the presentation to cover your questions, so please submit any questions that you have as we move through the presentation. Today's focus will be on hearing. Our session is entitled The Evolution of Communicating at a Distance. We're joined today by Chelsea Walters. Chelsea is a board-certified hearing instrument specialist and is the owner of Family Hearing and its 3 locations locally. Please join me in welcoming Chelsea Walters.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Like Al said, actually, let me go. Can everybody see that okay? All right. Well, like Al said, my name is Chelsea Walters. I am a board-certified hearing instrument specialist and co-owner of Family Hearing, which is the longest-serving and most awarded hearing practice in the region. I'm thrilled to be here today to discuss with you how communicating at a distance has evolved over time, and to make the point that despite the challenges and the discomfort that these changes bring, that change is the constant. We're a part of living history right now. So like Al said, please use your question and answer box. PC users, follow the yellow arrow. It's usually at the bottom of your screens. Apple users, take a peek at the ... icon, because sometimes it can be a few menus deep when you're using an Apple platform, and then you will find your chat setting. So follow the green arrows if you're an Apple user. The primary trait of being human is our ability to exchange ideas and information, whether it be across a room or across continents. The means we communicate through, though, have certainly changed over time. But it's our desire to share information easier, better, more efficiently that is one of the primary drivers of innovation throughout our history. So my plan today is to highlight some of those breakthroughs in telecommunication technology through our time, discuss how to maximize communication through the tools and tips that we're currently using today, and then reflect on the social force that drives these changes and inspires these developments. So with that, let's start talking about primitive communications. Early telecommunications took many forms. Oftentimes fire would be used, just like this picture of the Great Wall of China, to indicate that something was coming. So one watchtower, when it saw an intruder coming, would set up flames at night or smoke during the day, alerting the people inside of the walls that something was coming. Bells not only called people to worship, but they defined the edges of your community. If you wandered beyond where you could hear the bells, you knew you weren't at home anymore. Drums can be modulated in terms of pitch, rhythm, volume, and they can mimic that of the human voice. African talking drums were used to communicate between villages, from village to village, or from village to hunting party, as explained in this little video. Pretty cool. In the 6th century, Cyrus the Great in Persia had an empire so vast that he couldn't communicate easily from one end to another. So he is the first credited with creating a postal service with stations throughout his land. This was adopted by many cultures moving forward. The first hearing devices, kind of called the ear trumpet in the 1200s to the 1800s, evolved from hollowed out animal horns very early on. They didn't so much as amplify sound as to funnel it directly into the listener's ear. This eventually morphed into some clever technology like the acoustic chair that you see on the right. The arms were hollowed out so that people coming in to address royalty when kneeling down could speak directly into that little tube that funneled sound into an earpiece, like in this image, or even the back of the chair might have holes in it to kind of direct the sound to the listener's ear. Telegraphy, which means distance writing, began with a practice called semaphore. Semaphore is a messaging system of visual patterns, typically using rods or sticks to spell out messages. This was used in war so troops far away from each other could still be on the same page. It was also used by mariners so that they could communicate from boat to boat or from boat to shore. It's still used by the Navy and Coast Guard today. The dawn of electricity, however, gave rise to the telegraph, which used a pattern of dots and dashes, known as Morse code as its language. Originally, the needle of the telegraph would tick a piece of paper with those dots and dashes. The operator would then transcribe the message and then give it to the recipient. Over time, the operators began to just know what it sounded like, those dots and dashes, and they didn't need the paper anymore. They could just transcribe from hearing it. So this visual tool ended up morphing into an acoustic tool. The problem with the telegraph, however, was that it could only convey one message at a time, and you had the delay of the operator between the message where it needed to get delivered. Many people were hot on the trail to fix this issue, but it was Alexander Graham Bell who had the first successful patent for the telephone. The development of the telegraph and the telephone is what spurred the development of the radio. But radio wasn't what we think of it today. It was actually wireless telegraphy, so the sending of Morse code without the use of a wire. An Italian inventor named Marconi was the first to patent the radio, though Nikola Tesla was also working in the field at this time. Marconi's first message was the letter S. Why the letter S? It didn't have any significant meaning other than in Morse code, S is only 3 dots. And at the time, they were worried that a dash might crash their system. One of the greatest achievements that the radio allowed for was the ability for people at sea to find people lost at sea because they could communicate much more efficiently. Carbon transmitters allowed for many electronics to add amplification to the output that they were sending out. For instance, the telephone originally didn't turn anything up, it just transferred information. Miller Reese Hutchinson used the carbon transmitter to create the first portable hearing device. It's very stylish, wouldn't you say? The radio eventually developed into the reason why families would gather together at the end of the day to listen to sports, to the news, to their favorite talk show, kind of like a podcast. Adding visual to audio was the next natural step for this medium. Many tried and failed, but it was Philip T. Farnsworth who first successfully created a television by encoding radio waves with visual images that were reflected onto a screen by a vacuum tube. This is how the television got the nickname the tube. Vacuum tubes are devices that control electric current, and they were being used in many electronics, including radios at the time. A radio engineer named Earl Hines was the first to use a vacuum tube in a hearing device. This was fantastic because it allowed sound to be amplified up to 70 decibels. But the problem was they allowed sounds to be amplified up to 70 decibels, so these things were very loud, they were heavy, and you still had to wear them on your body. The invention of the transistor, though, in 1948 by Bell Labs was a game changer. Vacuum tubes needed to be replaced often, they had high power consumption, and they were fragile and very large. The transistor was the opposite in all ways, and it allowed hearing devices, radios, and more to become smaller, more durable, and reliable devices. Silicon Valley today still gets its name from the invention of the silicon transistor. In 1957, the first satellite was launched by Russia, but in 1962, the US launched the first active communication satellite, which received radio signals from the ground, amplified them, and then transmitted it anywhere over the Earth's surface. This was huge for communications internationally. In 1969, Charlie Klein and Bill Duval built the first computer network called the ARPANET. This was initially built to serve the Department of Defense, but eventually the global computer network split into separate uses for civilian and military use, and that's what gave rise to what we know today as the internet. Sending messages over computer networks at this time, like the ARPANET, happened informally. It was usually developers creating their own systems of communication, and most of the times these mail applications were incompatible with each other. The Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, or SMTP, allowed mail to be sent through cooperative hosts. Essentially, it allowed users to have an interface where everybody was speaking the same language. Look how easy it was to use.
We will be linking from the database studio to their home. Pat Green and Julian, welcome to Database.
Hello, Jane.
Hello, Jane.
Julian, I see you have your computer linked to the telephone line. Can you tell us how you did that?
Yes, well, it's very simple, really. The telephone is connected to the telephone network with a British Telecom plug, and I simply remove the telephone jack from the telecom socket and plug it into this box here, the modem. I then take another wire from the modem and plug it in where the telephone was. I can then switch on the modem and we're ready to go. The computer is asking me if I want to log on, and it's now telling me to phone up the main press or computer, which I will now do.
It's a very simple connection to make.
Extremely simple. And I can actually leave the modem plugged in once it's done that without affecting the telephone.
Very simple, right? I love how nerdy that video is.
That's great.
Sorry, I forgot to put my captioning on, so I'm a little late on that. But moving forward, audio electronics, as time went on, became increasingly more in the consumer's hands. We all had them in our homes. And this drove a demand for a clearer, higher quality sound. The solution for this problem was digital sound processing, or DSP. Digital sound processing is revolutionary because it allows manipulation of sound direction, pitch, volume, and timing. And this creates a more accurate, clear sound picture for whatever audio that you're listening to. The Widex Senso was the first commercially successful hearing device because it automatically carried out these manipulations as fast as the most advanced computers on the market. DSP is now a standard in phones, radios, hearing devices, and so much more. Satellite phones allow for communication worldwide. Instead of using a cell tower for a connection, it uses satellites, which means that in isolated areas, like on a boat in the middle of the ocean, you can still communicate. Voice over Internet protocols, or VoIP, transmits calls over the internet. This did away with long distance calling and is used in many offices today, which allows them to do call forwarding, checking your voicemail remotely, etc. It's still in development, of course. And today, we have all of these tools at our fingertips and so much more coming down the pipe. We communicate visually through text messages, emails, in person, snail mail sometimes. Audio communications through the phone, landline, or mobile, in person, on the computer, Zoom. And now we do both through so many things like Zoom, like FaceTime, like Google Duo. The merging of visual and audio communications is awesome because we understand more when more of our senses are engaged. Our brain is making sense out of the imperfect information it gets from each of our senses. So we get more from communication modes that use multiple modalities. And we talk about communication, we're typically talking about visual and audio senses. So as we transition into tips for how to maximize communication with the tools of our age, I think it's helpful to envision somebody that you communicate with where there might be some bumps in the conversation. So who is somebody that you currently communicate with that you would like to understand better or help them understand you better? Keep that in mind as we move forward into these tips. So when talking about visual communications, when we text or we write an email, emotion can be hard to discern because we don't have the benefit of looking at the user's expression or lip reading. We all lip read to some degree. This need was initially filled by the birth of the emoji in 1999, whose primary goal was to convey information and emotion in a simple and succinct way. Emojis can add a layer of dimension into a conversation. For instance, I'll stop at the store on my way home with a lovey-dovey smiley emoji. Honey, I'll feed you means something completely different than with a sweaty face mask emoji. And we've all kind of felt like this recently. If you want to take it to the next level, though, try adding a meme. A meme is typically a humorous static image that has some kind of funny or sarcastic text on it that is replicated virally over the internet. So I'll stop at the store on my way home with this might give the end user a chuckle or scare them. A GIF takes it even further. This is not a static image. It's usually moving. Sometimes there's words, sometimes they're not, and can add another kind of dimension to the conversation. I've definitely felt this way with my husband before. Like, yeah, I'm getting more milk because you ate it all. To add these things into your emails, you can look them up on Google. Just type in whatever idea you have and add the word meme or GIF at the end of it, and you'll have a bunch of images that you can copy and paste into your message. On iPhones or Droids, there are icons like the little red search magnifying glass on the iPhone or the smiley square face on the Android, where you can search emojis there or memes or GIFs there and embed it directly into the message. Moving on to sound, which is my primary focus always. Sound is the ultimate connector between people. It's how most people communicate. And even Helen Keller said that sound connects us to people and vision connects us to things. Whether it be a conversation, listening to a Zoom presentation, enjoying music. The most common way that we use audio is by talking on the phone. As we move into these tips, don't feel like you need to memorize all of this. At the end of this presentation, an email that will be sent with a PDF of these tips for you, and you can also find them on our website. So when we're not hearing well on the phone, the first thing we do is turn up the volume. It's like a reflex. Some people will also try speakerphone, talking about having more senses engaged. When we have two ears engaged, we have a better ability to pick up more of what's coming through. Some people don't like this because it has a distorted sound quality, especially when you turn the volume up to max, but some people find this successful. Now, if you're relying on speakerphone or you're always turning up the volume, it's definitely time to get a hearing test. A hearing test helps a provider map out how much volume an individual needs across the pitch range in order to figure out where you're hearing well and where you might need a boost. To better explain, try to read this little message. That one's really hard. How about this one? Most people can figure out what the second one says. How are you doing today? In English, vowels carry speech. They give speech the power and the oomph, and it helps it travel. But the consonants give clarity. So for most people, when they have a hearing loss, it's not that they can't hear, it's just that they're missing out on certain pieces of the information coming through. So if you're not hearing well on the phone consistently, have a provider help customize a solution to fill in the right voids for you so that it's easier. Additionally, by moving forward with better hearing, you have a guide to help you unlock features to improve audio quality through phone calls, video conferences, or anything moving forward. And I'll talk more about that later on. Moreover, phone placement can be a game changer for some people. If you're always putting the phone on the same ear, sometimes in clinic, we find that people will put the phone up on the ear that's opposite the hand they write with, and it's just reflexive. They don't even think about it. And sometimes by trying the other ear, they realize that they're putting the phone on their bad ear. So try to figure out what the right ear is for you. If you have a hearing device, especially one that goes behind your ear, play around with phone placement. So putting the phone directly on the hearing device behind the ear or on the ear might be more or less successful for you. It all depends on how your hearing loss is shaped to how the hearing device is configured. So without knowing that, just play with phone placement until you find the sweet spot. If that's not enough, we can always add another sense. So captioning services can really help add some visual to audio and make sure that you don't miss any piece of the message. There are free applications that you can download on your cell phone, like Ava is one of them that will caption stuff for you. But you can also get your hearing loss certified. Even a mild hearing loss will qualify you for a free caption called Landline phone. This phone is amplified. It captions voicemails to every conversation you have. You can save the conversation, so if you needed to go back and look for a phone number that you didn't write down, you can look at it later. These are great, and what's also great is you get a technician to come, install it for you, and make sure that you know how to use it. Some people don't have landline phones anymore, though, and you can get that same service on your cell phone now. So there would be an application you would take a phone call through, and then that application would text the conversation for you in the same way as that captioning phone. These are great services, and they are free to the person with hearing loss. The FCC pays for it. They put money aside for this program. Now, going into another tool, audio streaming can be really helpful. So if you have a headset that you can plug into your phone, or you have a Bluetooth headset, again, we can be engaging both ears. Some are only one ear, but I would recommend engaging both so you understand more. And hearing devices today have the ability to stream your phone calls directly into your hearing devices. This is better than a headset because it's not just turning everything up, it's just turning the volume up where you need it. Moving forward into applications that use video and audio, like video chats or Zoom meetings, like what we're doing right now. Again, this is great because we're utilizing more senses. And as we move into these tips, just remember you will be getting these in an email after, or you can find them on our website. First off, consider lighting. Lighting is really important. That way we're highlighting our face for the person on the other end so that they can best read lips and expression. Make sure you're not angling your face so that it's difficult to read lips or it's shadowing your lips. Make sure that you're looking at the person that you're talking to. In a lot of these applications, they have your image on there too, so you can kind of self-check and make sure you don't have broccoli in your teeth. And this is great. We all use it. But if it's at the bottom of your screen, it's angling your face down and it's breaking contact, it doesn't feel as natural of a conversation. So if you can usually move the camera up to the top right below your camera. So if you are self-checking, you're not really breaking contact. In a lot of cases, you can also completely hide your image so you don't have to look at yourself, which sometimes is nice too. Reduce the noise in the room around you. Any sound in your environment, along with your voice, is getting picked up by your microphone, which means the person on the other end has more to filter out. And it also means that you have more to filter out from what's coming through your speakers. So turn down the TV or turn it off, turn off the radio. If you're outside and there's traffic or wind, get inside. Just be considerate of the noise that's being picked up. Also, get as close to your microphone as you can. The farther you are away, the quieter the signal. Reduce distractions. Through applications like Zoom, it is so easy to be texting at the same time, checking your email at the same time, tying your shoe, doing your hair, drinking coffee. So try to be present in the moment that you're in, put the distractions away or turn them off. Additionally, check your equipment. If you're always turning up the audio, maybe some better speakers connected to your computer or your cell phone might help, or headphones, like we said earlier. If people often tell you that you're too quiet, make sure that you're close to the microphone. And you can also get an external microphone. Maybe the microphone on your computer or your phone isn't working as well as it once did. It might be clogged. So those are some other things to check. And again, you don't have to be tethered with speakers or a headset connected to your computer or to your phone. You can stream, so you can get Bluetooth headphones or your hearing devices can stream through these services so that the audio is being shaped for you. Oftentimes when we mishear something, it's not because we missed out on the whole thing, it's because we missed out on part of the sentence. So if somebody says what, don't say the same exact thing. Try to change up the language, use thesaurus, get a different word in there to help them pick out more from the conversation. So the grocery store was packed can be changed to the grocery store was crowded. On the opposite end, if you're the person that didn't quite catch what was said, don't just say what. This doesn't help your communication partner know what you missed. So tell them, it was what. That way they can only have to repeat the part that you actually missed. And in general, the truth is we're all plunging into these telecommunication services more than we ever have. It's unfamiliar. This is now the 4th Zoom meeting I've hosted, and it's only been in the last 2 months that I've done any of them. Everybody's in the same boat, and everybody has compassion as we struggle through the act of getting connected. So don't be afraid to try, and if you need help, call a friend, Google it, or ask your grandkid. We're all rookies. And also, be authentic. I think that for using video conference services, we all feel like we have to be camera ready, but we're all stuck at home right now. For the most part, we might be going out a little bit more, but we're sick of deep cleaning our house. We're lonely. Maybe we're not always looking our best. It's pajama time. Be authentic. Nobody cares, and just own whatever you're doing. But maybe don't go this far.
Bye. You guys. Hear us? Daddy! Oh no! Don't. Jen, call him. Oh my gosh. There's a couple pictures of that. Oh. Oh. Oh boy.
What's up?
Tony, I can see you. We can all see you.
That's a good one. So now moving into communicating with a mask or just communications in this socially distant world. A lot of these tips are going to be really similar. Again, these will be emailed to you, and you can also find them on our website. So when you're communicating with a mask, consider the lighting still. We're going to do better when we can read expression, even if we can't read lips. Avoid and reduce noise. Because we can't read lips, it's hugely important to be able to only have one audio source that you're having to figure out what's coming through. Reduce distractions, be present in the moment that you are in, and rephrase if somebody misheard something, and don't be afraid to ask for rephrasing if you missed something. Additionally, mask or not, some good communication tips are always to face the person that you talk to. Not only are you going to get the strongest signal if you're both facing each other, but we have the ability to read lips and expression. Put the background noise behind you. So if you are in a communication environment where there might be noise around, facing your back towards that noise is helpful because our ears are designed to reflect sound behind us and pick up sound in front of us. It's not perfect, but it definitely can help in these environments. And make sure that your hearing is the best it can be. If you feel like you're struggling to hear, your family might be noticing that you're having trouble hearing, get a hearing test. And if you have hearing devices, be wearing them. That said, masks make it apparent how much we all rely on lip reading. So audio is very, very important. So keep wearing your hearing devices. And if you don't believe that you lip read, there's something called the McGurk effect that says when we hear the same sound with varying lip movements, our brain will believe what it sees, not what it hears. So this is a recording of a sound repeated over and over again that's superimposed over the same guy's face, making different lip movements. Take a peek.
Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba.
Kind of crazy, right? The whole time he's saying the word ba, but with the V or D lip movements, we find ourselves thinking that he's saying the other sound. The people that we're isolating with right now, or maybe we're not completely isolating anymore, but we're pretty much staying close to a small network of people. And those people are our closest people. And so they're good barometers for what's going on with our hearing. So if they are noticing that it's time for a hearing test in these confinements that we find ourselves in, take them at their word. Additionally, if you have a hearing device, you probably know this already, but face masks can knock your hearing aids loose. In clinic, we have seen more cases of loss and damage come up in the last few months. So be careful when you're removing the type of mask that goes directly behind your ears, and be careful when you're putting it on. Also, consider getting a mask that ties behind your head. This one in the middle is kind of what you'll find off the shelf. But on the right, you can see somebody clever made like a little band with a button where it attaches on the back. That way the ear ones aren't hanging on the ear itself. The one on the left, I had a patient actually jimmy rig for himself. So he just took that off of a jacket and kind of made an adjustable string. People come up with awesome things. Anywho, the worldwide focus on social distance has certainly changed how we interact, but our methods for interacting have always been evolving. And our motivating for communicating well is the same as it's ever been. Alexander Graham Bell was a teacher for the deaf. His mother and his wife both had hearing loss, and his drive to create electronic speech, which is what became the telephone, was motivated by wanting to help them. Miller Reese Hutchinson, who created the first portable hearing device, had a friend growing up who had scarlet fever, leaving him deaf. And as he went into college and engineering later on, he always had the goal of making a hearing device so his friend could communicate better. Hans de Mont, who is the founder of a popular hearing device today called Oticon, traveled to England to buy the same hearing aid for his wife that the crown princess at the time wore. In doing so, he gained a contract to distribute those hearing devices, and that's what started Oticon today. The desire to connect better and easier gives us so many opportunities. The technology that we've been discussing is just one outcome of this drive, but there are many other benefits to quality connections. Good social connections, or many social connections, or quality social connections increase our longevity. They give us higher self-esteem. They lower our rates of depression and anxiety and allow for stronger gene expression for immunity. In one study, hundreds of volunteers were quarantined while being infected with the common cold, and researchers found that stronger immunity correlated with those people who had more active and socially diverse networks. Moreover, modern connections are easing our mind right now. More and more people are coming online to entertain us. They remind us that we're not alone. My 14-month-old thinks that howling at 8 p.m. is normal now. And our connections right now redefine our limits.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
So if you find yourself experiencing any difficulties communicating now or at any time, please reach out to us, Family Hearing, or another provider. Quality connections are what give us purpose and meaning in our lives. I have so enjoyed this opportunity to connect with you. Thank you so much for joining.
That was outstanding, Chelsea. Very entertaining as well. I'm hoping that more people will use the Q&A box on the bottom of the screen. We have one question in there right now, which I'll ask, and then we've got a few more. Is there a way to slow the progression of hearing loss?
There's ways to try and preserve your hearing loss. So trying to stay out of noisy environments being one of them. Staying healthy. There is a correlation between good cardiovascular health and less hearing loss. Though hearing loss as we age, the grayer our hair gets, the more common that it is. So there's not really a way to prevent it per se, but the same old practices of if it's really noisy, wear hearing protection or get out of there. And staying healthy are the best things that you can do.
You're a concert goer. Do you wear hearing protection when you go to concerts?
It depends on where I'm at the concert. So if I'm at Red Rocks high up, I'm probably not going to be wearing my protection, but indoors, I definitely wear my hearing protection. Or if I'm somehow kind of closer to the stage. I'm not that type of person though. That's up that high.
Did you recommend hearing protection when you're going to be in a loud environment, especially if you've got some mild hearing loss?
Exactly. The longer period of time that you are in a noisy environment, the more likely it is that hearing protection will be of benefit.
And if you've gone to a concert and you have a lot of ringing in the ears, how long does it normally take for a normal hearing person to have that sound, that background noise disappear?
Well, that can be temporary threshold shift where the hair cells in your ears just kind of get knocked down. And most people, I would say it shouldn't last more than a day. It typically should go away shortly after you're done at that concert.
And one of the most common hearing loss and connective hearing loss issues is tinnitus. Some people say tinnitus. What are the new treatments that you're seeing? Because it's probably on the phone now. Or on this Zoom meeting, people are going, yeah, I have that. I hear ringing all the time, or I hear clicking all the time. What are the new treatments that you're seeing to address this problem? And is there on the horizon that may improve it?
Tons of research is going into tinnitus all of the time. So there are a lot of different things that are popping up. That said, if there is tinnitus present, it is usually linked to a hearing loss. And so the best treatment for tinnitus is to give the brain is actually where the tinnitus is coming from. That's what's generating the sound, access to the sounds that it's missing. A lot of times that alone can help the tinnitus. On top of that, hearing devices today offer the ability to have a masking signal that can be music-based or white noise-based that can be input alongside of the amplification that can also give your brain something else to focus on other than your tinnitus. So those are the most successful tools that we see in practice to help with tinnitus.
Yeah, we have one chat question about hearing protection. At what decibel level would you recommend somebody wear the over-the-counter hearing protections?
I mean, I would say, the average person isn't going to have a decibel meter reader, though you can absolutely download those on your phone. If the conversation is being strained with the people that you're in because of the noise, it's probably time to consider wearing hearing protection. So you can get over-the-counter protection like those yellow foamies, or they have those like Eddy plugs that have like 3 phalanges on a stick. Those are better than yellow foamies because they create a better seal. If you're going to be in a noisy environment often, like say you are a concert goer, getting some custom hearing protection, make sure that seal is always perfect for you, and it allows for the conversations that you're having sound more natural while also giving you the protection that you need. So I would say if you're in a situation where the conversation is strained by the volume of the ambient noise, that's a time to consider getting hearing protection.
Is there a safe way to clean wax out of your ears, or is it just better to see a doctor and have it done in the office?
I think it's best to have a provider involved in that conversation just because everybody's ear canals develop wax differently. There are people we see in practice once a month, and we just remove a little bit at a time. There are some people that we help give advice to self-treat, but I would say at the start, for the first like month to 3 months, have a provider involved in making that decision, because you might be able to self-treat it, and we can guide you through that, but it also might just be best to have somebody helping you with that.
Excellent. And who do you contact to get a free caption phone from the FCC?
You would make an appointment with any provider. Every hearing provider out there knows about the service. And after you get a hearing test, when you come there, tell them that you're looking to get a caption phone. They'll probably be looking to see if you want that anyway when they start to get to know you. And then at the end of your appointment, if you have a hearing loss, they can fill out a piece of a paper for you to send off to those captioning services, or you can have it ready for you to send off yourself.
Just give me 1 second. I'm reading some of these. Is one person saying, I have to get hearing aids at some point in the near future. How can I find the right devices without wading through the many, many sales pitches I see?
Well, I guess I wonder what that means by sale pitches, because there is a lot of marketing out there, and every hearing aid company believes that they have the best product out there. So sometimes weeding through that marketing can be challenging. And even Consumer Reports, there's some sites where you'll go and you'll look up what's the best hearing aid on the market today. And a lot of the people who actually reply to those are the ones that either love their hearing aids or absolutely hate their hearing aids. Hearing devices are like cars. Some have better, I don't know anything about cars, but some have better four-wheel drive. Some have better transmissions. That's a horrible example, but every car has different offerings. Same thing with hearing devices. Some manufacturers are better with certain types of losses than others. Some manufacturers are better at certain types of makes, like is it in the ear or is it behind your ear? So the best thing that you can do is find a qualified provider that you trust, look at reviews, ask your friends where they go, and go and talk to them about what your goals are. And they should be able to give you kind of, this is what I recommend. And maybe with the research that you've done, you say, well, what about this? And we might say, well, that could work. This is my worry. Also, every hearing device has a trial period. So if you start with one product, maybe it's the one that you really wanted to get. I've had this happen. And then during that trial period, we end up switching to what I recommended, or vice versa. So find a provider that you feel like you can trust, who you can figure out what the right product is for you with them, because they have the knowledge to be able to guide you.
Excellent. Here's a more of a technical question about hair cells. Can they recover and stand up again? This person says they've heard that birds are the only animal to heal these naturally so they can hear again. So can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with that research?
So I'm not well versed in that research, so not well. That is true. So way to know that fact, because that's a very obscure one. And there is research being developed in terms of how do we redevelop those hair cells and help with hair cell growth. I don't know anything about it really to say that, to speak of any substance on it, but I do know that it's not being utilized for consumers at this point. It's still in the research phase.
So is it easier for you as an audiologist or instrument expert to treat people with low range hearing loss or high range hearing loss?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, every type of hearing loss has its challenges, and no two people are the same. So, I would almost say that it's the people, the hearing losses all have different hoops that we have to jump through, and they offer their own challenges. Even mild hearing losses can be challenging to treat, just because you don't need as much amplification as somebody who has a more severe hearing loss. But personality plays a role in it too. Some people are very tech savvy. Some people have more challenges with that. And some people have certain sensitivities to sound that take a while to figure out how to program right for them. So it's all the same. Everything offers a different puzzle that we have to figure out.
Well, this is a puzzle. How common is the cookie bite hearing loss? I've never heard of that.
How common is it?
I never heard. Could you describe what a cookie bite hearing loss is?
Yeah, most hearing loss that we see is high frequency. So as we age or with noise exposure, it's typically the high frequencies that show the most damage. A cookie bite hearing loss will typically have better hearing. So we've got low frequencies and high frequencies. Actually, I can do it this way. Low frequencies and high frequencies. So typically we see a curve that kind of slopes downward like this. In a cookie bite hearing loss, we see more of a smile, where in the mid frequencies, they have more of a dip. That smile can be up in the normal range, where the cheeks of the smile are in the normal range, and then we have a mild hearing loss, but it can also go down. That's often associated with a genetic type of hearing loss. So it's like there's a family history that goes along with it.
That's interesting.
So it's not hugely common, but it's definitely something we see.
Can you explain a little bit about cochlear implants, and are they really better than hearing aids?
Cochlear implants are kind of like a hearing device and a surgery. So when there is a strong enough hearing loss that success with standard hearing devices isn't successful, what a cochlear implant is going to do is it's going to actually do a surgery to replace the cochlea, that snail-shaped little organ in your ear, to replace the hair cells with prosthetic hair cells. Those are then connected to a device behind your ear, and that's the hearing device. So the hearing device captures the sound out here, and then it stimulates that prosthetic cochlea that was put in the ear. Cochlear implants have come a very, very long way in terms of how successful people are with them. So it's not like, oh man, I just want to get a surgery for my hearing loss because I want to hear better. Cochlear implants are better. It's typically when people are still struggling with the use of hearing devices that we would consider getting a cochlear implant.
And what's the price range for a cochlear implant, roughly?
Cochlear implants, if you needed a cochlear implant, we work with other providers who are going to get you hooked up with them. So cochlear implants are hopefully covered by insurance because they can be very, very expensive. So I have a client right now who just went through the process of getting her cochlear implant pre-approved because she's going to be getting a cochlear implant on one side. I don't know how much it would be out of pocket, but in the tens of thousands of dollars for sure.
Interesting. What would you say is the most exciting new treatment that you see on the horizon in the next 1 to 5 years? You see all these things that on futuristic programs that talk about things that are going to change, hearing forever. So is there anything on that horizon at this point that you're seeing?
I feel like I'm always surprised and inspired by what ends up coming out. So I definitely think something that's going to change with hearing devices in the near future is how they're powered. There's going to be better ways than typical batteries. Right now, there are rechargeable solutions, but there's going to be a lot more research and development into that field. What hearing devices are going to be able to do in relation to their connection to our cell phones, I think is going to be something of interest in the future. What is it going to offer besides right now it offers remote controls, the streaming into your hearing devices like we discussed in the presentation. But I am curious and anticipate that there is going to be more that is available through that connection. And there's just some things you can't really predict. Like when hearing devices became compatible with cell phones, I mean, that was just a huge industry changer. It changed everything. And that was about 5 years ago. I look forward to seeing what the next change is along with all of you.
Interesting. And, I know, I believe I read that hearing aids are now covered by Medicare. But the question that someone asked is, why aren't hearing aids covered by health insurance?
I don't have a great answer for that. It would definitely be nice if they were covered by more insurance companies. I haven't heard that Medicare covers hearing devices at this point yet, Al, but I have heard that they are looking to have that be more possible. I wish I had a good answer. It'd make my job a lot easier if more insurance is paid for hearing devices.
Interesting. let's see here. I'm just trying to see if there are any questions we haven't covered here. Um, how has COVID impacted your business? Have you seen how has it impacted it?
I mean, COVID-19 has just changed some of the processes in the office. We've always had sanitation policies, but now we have more time between appointments so that we have more time to completely sanitize a room. Also make sure that people don't have any interaction or crossing paths in the lobby. So having a big span of time allows for one person to be in each office at a time. We used to do house calls to senior centers. Right now we're still doing that, but it's more curbside. So it's like we show up, we fix or clean a hearing device outside of the front lobby and then drop it back off with the front office person. So we're still doing the same things, just kind of with more safety precautions all around them.
I had a question from somebody, or a comment from somebody that said she's 82 years old and her tinnitus was mild, but it seems to have gone away now that she's been spending all this time at home. So she was just wondering, why that might be.
Tinnitus, though often is related to hearing loss, can absolutely be exacerbated by stress. So if staying at home has calmed down life a little bit, it would be no surprise to me that you're not noticing the tinnitus nearly as much. So for people who have tinnitus, in addition to making sure the brain has access to those sounds that it's missing, it's also a good idea to keep a journal. And on a day that you have really horrible tinnitus, what were the things that happened? Did you eat chocolate? Did you drink alcohol? Were you really stressed? To figure out how to manage those kind of exacerbators for you.
Yeah, and this is a good question. I'm sure you hear this all the time. How do you get someone with hearing loss that has hearing loss to be willing to go to get tested?
Oh man, that's challenging. Oftentimes what I'll tell my patients, like we'll have a patient who maybe their husband or their wife just isn't willing to come in, or their mom. Most places will offer a free hearing screening. It just depends on kind of what the objection is for that person. Is that I'll never wear a hearing device? Or is it I don't want to pay for a hearing test? If it's I don't want to pay for a hearing test, find a place that will offer a free hearing screening, because that'll get their foot in the door. If it's I'll never wear a hearing device, what I always say is a hearing loss is more conspicuous than a hearing aid, one. And you don't know what a hearing device is like until you try it. Call ahead when you make your appointment for that person and ask the office if they'll do a demonstration of technology on that person so they can actually get a feel for what it is that they'd be stepping into. Most places would do that.
Good answer. We've got somebody who has a hearing problem, and they'd like you to speak more slowly about this answer. She says, or he or she, it's a woman. She says that my church plays music at 90 decibels. And she says, I downloaded a decibel meter, so she wasn't sure when she should wear her ear protection. So it's that same question about at what decibel level would you recommend using hearing protection?
Does she have hearing devices too?
She
Do you have
doesn't.
hearing aids? Yes. So if you have hearing devices, I would recommend maybe talking to your provider about that, because they might be able to make you a specific program for church that can make the sound more comfortable while still hearing the pastor or whoever it is that's doing the sermon. In that case, if you're wearing hearing devices, I would definitely talk to your provider about that particular situation. And it's not a bad idea to just talk to your church about how you think that might be a little bit too loud as well.
And, somebody who has some experience with the VA is offering some advice that the VA provides quite high-tech hearing devices for veterans. So if you're a veteran and you didn't know that they're available, contact your local VA.
The VA gets you the best hearing devices that are available. It's true.
Excellent. We might be coming to the end of our questions and our time. So I want to thank you, Chelsea, for a wonderful, wonderful presentation and a very vibrant question and answer session. I'd like to remind everybody to visit dailycamera.com/aging. You'll see our virtual expo. Now, you're not going to get candy and trinkets and all the things you did when we had them at our actual expo, but you know, supporting our partners and our advertisers who make this available and make this a reality is very important. So please take the time to go to dailycamera.com/aging and look at the virtual expo. And I'll say thank you, thank you, thank you once again for everyone who participated in this session, and most importantly to Chelsea, who did an absolutely fantastic job. So thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon.